Walk into any supermarket in the United States, Europe, or practically anywhere in the modern world, and what do you see? You see abundance. You see 40 different types of pasta sauce. You see 50 different brands of cereal. You see entire aisles dedicated to just potato chips, with flavors ranging from classic salted to spicy jalapeno. It feels like freedom. It feels like the ultimate expression of capitalism, choice. You believe that if you don't like Lay's chips, you can stick it to the man by buying Doritos instead. You believe that if you boycott Dasani water, you can switch to Smart Water and support a different company. But this is a lie. It is the greatest magic trick in the history of economics. Because if you turn those packages over and read the fine print, the illusion collapses. Lay's, Doritos, Cheetos, Tostitos, and Quaker Oats, they are all owned by PepsiCo. Dasani, Smart Water, Vitamin Water, and Minute Maid, they are all owned by Coca-Cola. Kit Kat, Nescafe, Maggi, and Gerber Baby Food, all owned by Nestle. In reality, the illusion of choice is manufactured by just 10 massive corporations that control nearly every single item in the grocery store. They are the gatekeepers of the shelves. But this video isn't about Nestle or Coca-Cola, because believe it or not, even they are just the middlemen. They are just the marketing departments. To understand who really controls your food, who controls the price of bread, the supply of meat, and the future of farming, we have to go deeper. We have to go behind the brands, behind the supermarkets, and into the shadows of the global commodity trade. We are going to uncover the companies that don't sell food. They own the ingredients of life itself. They own the grain silos. They own the cargo ships. They own the fertilizer mines. And most terrifyingly, they own the very DNA of the seeds that farmers plant in the ground. These are the companies that profit from war. These are the companies that get richer when you starve. And unlike Coke or Pepsi, you have probably never heard their names. They are known in the industry simply as the ABCD. And in 2026, as food prices hit record highs and farmers go bankrupt, these four companies are quietly rewriting the rules of human survival. This is the story of the monopolies you don't see, and it starts with the grain. So let's peel back the label. When you buy a box of Kellogg's Corn Flakes, Kellogg's is just the company that cooked the corn, put it in a box, and paid for the commercial. But where did the corn come from? Who grew it? Who stored it? Who shipped it across the ocean? The answer is likely one of four companies. They are the ABCD of the global food system, and together they control between 70 and 90% of the global grain trade. A is for ADM, Archer Daniels Midland. If you look at the ingredients list on almost any processed food in America, soda, bread, cookies, salad dressing, you will see high fructose corn syrup or soybean oil. That is ADM. They are the supermarket to the world. They process the crops that turn into the invisible fillers in your diet. They don't make the meal, they make the calories. B is for Bunge. While you were distracted by oil prices at the gas pump, Bunge quietly cornered the market on the oil in your kitchen. They are the undisputed kings of soybean and canola oil. If you eat anything fried or anything that contains vegetable fat, you are paying Bunge. They dominate the massive soy fields of Brazil, turning South American rainforests into animal feed for Chinese pigs. C is for Cargill. This is the big one, the Leviathan. Cargill is not just the largest food company in the world, it is the largest private company in the United States, period. Because they are private, they don't have to answer to the stock market. They don't have to reveal their secrets. But their reach is terrifying. Cargill provides the eggs for every McDonald's in America. They slaughter the cows that become your burgers. They harvest the palm oil that goes into your shampoo. They even mine the salt that goes on your fries. In 2026, Cargill's annual revenue is larger than the GDP of 70% of the countries on Earth. They are not a business. They are a rogue state disguised as a corporation. D is for Louis Dreyfus, the quietest of the bunch, but just as deadly. Based in Europe, they control the flow of rice, cotton, and coffee.
If you are wearing a cotton t-shirt and drinking a cup of coffee right now, Louis Dreyfus likely took a cut of both. Together, these four companies form a cartel that operates like an hourglass. Imagine the shape of an hourglass. At the top, you have millions of farmers trying to sell their crops. At the bottom, you have billions of hungry consumers trying to buy food. And in the middle, that tiny, narrow neck where every single grain of sand must pass, sits the ABCD. They own the silos where the grain is stored. They own the ports where it is loaded. They own the massive cargo ships that cross the oceans. And they own the processing plants that turn raw wheat into flour. They have created a choke point. Because they control the physical infrastructure of food, they control the price. If a farmer in Iowa wants to sell his corn, he has to sell it to the local elevator owned by Cargill or ADM. He has no other choice. If a bakery in Cairo wants to buy wheat, they have to buy it from Bunge or Dreyfus. They have no other choice. For decades, they operated in the shadows, making steady profits by moving calories from point A to point B. But in the last few years, something changed. They stopped being just logistics companies and started becoming crisis profiteers. And that brings us to the reason why your grocery bill doubled and why it is never going back down.
Ask yourself a simple question. Why did your grocery bill double in the last 3 years? If you watch the news, the answer is always the same. They blame the war in Ukraine. They blame supply chain disruptions. They blame drought in Argentina. They blame Putin's price hike. And to be fair, those things happened. Russia and Ukraine are the breadbaskets of Europe. When the tanks rolled across the border, the supply of wheat was disrupted. But here is the part the news didn't tell you. While you were struggling to pay $8 for a carton of eggs, and while bakeries in Egypt were closing because they couldn't afford flour, the ABCD companies were popping champagne bottles. In 2022, the year the war started, Cargill reported the highest profit in its 157-year history. Their revenue jumped 23% to a record $165 billion. ADM also had its best year ever. Bunge saw its earnings skyrocket. Think about that for a second. If there was a crisis and a shortage, shouldn't these companies be struggling too? Shouldn't their costs go up? The answer reveals the darkest secret of the food industry. Volatility is profit. These companies don't just sell grain, they trade it. They treat food like a stock market asset. They have massive trading desks in Geneva and Chicago that bet on the future price of wheat and corn. Because they own the silos and the ships, they know exactly how much grain is in the world at any given moment. They have better data than the CIA. They know about a drought in Brazil weeks before the market does, and they use that inside information to place bets. When the war in Ukraine started, the global supply of wheat dropped by maybe 2 or 3%, but the price of wheat on the global market jumped by 50%. Why? Because of fear, and because the ABCD cartel used that fear to jack up prices. They held on to their stockpiles, waited for the panic to set in, and then sold at the peak. Economists have a name for this. It is called greedflation. It is the phenomenon where corporations use a legitimate crisis, like a war, as an excuse to raise prices far higher than their costs actually rose. They know you expect prices to go up, so they raise them an extra 20% just because they can. And here is the kicker. When the cost of fuel came down, and when the supply of wheat stabilized in 2024 and 2025, did the price of your bread go back down? No. This is the rocket and feather effect. Prices go up like a rocket when there is a crisis, but they fall like a feather when the crisis is over. In 2026, we are living in a permanent state of high food prices. The emergency is over, but the profit margins remain. The ABCD companies have successfully reset the baseline. They realize that people will pay anything to not starve. They have turned the basic human need for calories into a financial casino where the house always wins. But manipulating the market price wasn't enough. To truly control the food supply, they needed to control the source. They needed to own the very beginning of the food chain. And that brings us to the seeds.
For 10,000 years, farming followed a simple, sacred cycle. A farmer would plant a seed, the crop would grow, They would harvest the food, and they would save the seeds from the best plants to use for the next season. It was a loop. It was free. It was independent. But in the last 30 years, that cycle has been broken. It has been criminalized. Today, if a farmer in Iowa or India saves the seeds from their own harvest and plants them again the next year, they are not just breaking a contract, they are breaking the law. They can be sued, bankrupt, and dragged into court by a corporation thousands of miles away. Why? Because they don't own the seeds, they are just renting them. This is the era of patented life. In the 1980s, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that a living organism could be patented if it was modified by humans. This opened Pandora's box. Chemical giants realized they could take a corn seed, tweak its DNA slightly in a lab, and then claim ownership over that seed forever. Enter the Big Three. Just like the ABCD controls the grain trade, three massive conglomerates control the inputs. Bayer, which bought Monsanto, Corteva, a merger of Dow and DuPont, and ChemChina, which owns Syngenta. Together, these three titans control more than 60% of the world's commercial seed market. But here is the trap. They don't just sell seeds, they sell chemicals. Bayer produces the weed killer Roundup. They also produce Roundup-ready seeds, corn and soy that are genetically engineered to survive being sprayed with Roundup. It is a perfect, vicious circle. If you are a farmer, you cannot buy the seed without buying the chemical, and you cannot use the chemical without buying the seed. You are locked into their ecosystem. In 2026, farming has become a subscription service. Farmers are no longer independent business owners, they are users. They pay a licensing fee to Bayer or Corteva every single spring for the privilege of planting a crop. The price of seeds has risen by over 300% in the last 2 decades, far outpacing inflation. And the enforcement is brutal. These companies employ seed police, private investigators who roam the countryside, testing farmers' crops to see if they are using pirated seeds. If they find a match, they sue the farmer for patent infringement. This monopoly on life has terrified scientists. We are losing our biodiversity. Instead of thousands of varieties of wheat and corn, the world is now dependent on just a handful of patented strains owned by 3 boardrooms. If a disease evolves that can kill that one specific strain of Bayer corn, the entire global food supply is at risk. We have put all our eggs in one very expensive, very fragile basket. They have privatized the very source of human survival. They have turned nature into intellectual property. And while they squeeze the farmers at the bottom, another group of monopolies is squeezing the chicken and the cow. Before we move on to the meat industry and the dark world of contract farming, I have a small request. The algorithm often suppresses content that exposes these corporate giants. If you want to help us spread this truth, please take a second to hit the like button. It helps the channel immensely and ensures more people see the reality behind their food. Thank you. Now, let's talk about the chicken on your plate.
If you close your eyes and imagine a chicken farmer, what do you see? Maybe you see a man in denim overalls walking through a green pasture, throwing feed to a flock of happy birds. It is a romantic image. It is the image printed on every package of chicken breast you buy. But in reality, that farmer doesn't exist anymore. The chicken industry has undergone a radical transformation called vertical integration. In the old days, there were thousands of independent companies. Today, just 4 corporations control over 55% of the poultry market in the United States and massive chunks of the global supply. Tyson Foods, JBS from Brazil, Purdue, and Sanderson Farms. Here's how the trap works. A farmer borrows $500,000 from the bank to build massive windowless chicken houses. He signs a contract with a company like Tyson. Tyson delivers the chicks. Tyson delivers the feed. Tyson dictates the medicine. The farmer owns the land and the debt, but Tyson owns the birds. This is called contract farming. The farmer is not an entrepreneur. He is a serf on his own land. He has zero control. If the chickens get sick, it's the farmer's loss. But if the chickens grow fat and healthy, Tyson takes the profit. They use a brutal system called the tournament system. Farmers are ranked against their neighbors. If your chickens don't grow as fast as your neighbors, your pay is cut. This pits farmer against farmer in a desperate race to the bottom. To win this race, the industry pumps the birds with antibiotics, not to cure sickness, but to make them grow faster. In 1950, it took 70 days to raise a chicken to market weight. Today, it takes just 47 days, and the bird is twice as big. Their breasts are so large that their legs often break under the weight. And don't be fooled by the labels. Cage-free, all-natural, farm-fresh, these are often marketing terms owned by the same giants. Even some of the popular organic brands have been quietly bought up by Purdue or Tyson. This monopoly affects your health. The massive overuse of antibiotics in these factory farms is creating superbugs, bacteria that are resistant to medicine. The World Health Organization has called this one of the biggest threats to global health. But while the farmers are trapped in debt and the animals are trapped in cages, the consumer is trapped in the checkout line. Because once the food leaves the farm, it hits the final choke point, the place where you spend your money. And this is where the story gets truly terrifying. We have talked about seeds, grains, and meat, but the entities that control the future of food, the ones using AI and genetic editing to change what you eat in 2030, are preparing something that sounds like a sci-fi nightmare. Most people click off the video right before the solution, but do not go anywhere. The final chapter reveals the technology that is about to replace the farm entirely, and you need to know how to opt out before it's too late. But first, we have to survive the supermarket.
You have survived the seed monopolies. You have navigated the grain cartel. You have seen the factory farms. Now you stand at the final gate, the supermarket checkout. In the United States, for every dollar you spend on food, the farmer receives less than 15 cents. Where does the rest go? A massive chunk goes to the retail gatekeepers. In 2026, the grocery sector is not a free market. It is an oligopoly dominated by giants like Walmart, Kroger, Costco, and the new predator in the jungle, Amazon, which owns Whole Foods. These companies have become so big that they have flipped the script on capitalism. Usually, we worry about a monopoly, where one seller controls the price. But these giants exercise something called monopsony power. This means there is essentially one buyer. Walmart is the largest grocer in America. If you are a company making salsa or pickles or cereal and you want to survive, you must be on Walmart's shelves. If Walmart says no, your business dies. This gives them terrifying power. They can dictate the price to the suppliers. They tell the pickle company, "We will only pay $2 per jar, take it or leave it." To meet that price, the supplier has to cut costs. They use cheaper ingredients. They use more preservatives. They squeeze their workers. The everyday low prices you see on the sticker are paid for by the invisible degradation of quality throughout the entire chain. But it gets worse. Have you ever noticed the Great Value brand at Walmart, or Kirkland Signature at Costco, or Amazon Basics? These are called private labels. The retail gatekeepers are no longer just selling other people's products. They are copying them. They look at the sales data. They see that a small independent brand of organic peanut butter is selling well, so they create their own version, put it right next to the original, and sell it for $1 less. They own the store, they own the shelf, and they own the data. It's like playing a game of poker where the dealer can see everyone's cards. The independent brands don't stand a chance. And then there is Amazon. When Amazon bought Whole Foods, it wasn't because they wanted to sell kale. It was because they wanted data. Food is the ultimate data point. What you eat tells a company everything about you. If you switch from regular food to organic, your income likely went up. If you start buying prenatal vitamins, you are pregnant. If you buy comfort food and ice cream at 11 p.m., you are likely stressed or depressed.
Amazon uses this data to build a profile of your entire life. They are integrating food into their prime ecosystem, locking you in even tighter. So the farmer is squeezed, the independent brands are copied and crushed, and you, the consumer, are steered toward the products that make the retail gatekeepers the most money. But while these companies fight for their wallet, a silent crisis is unfolding inside your body. Because when you prioritize profit over nutrition and shelf life over health, the food changes. It becomes cheaper, yes, but it also becomes deadly. This leads us to the hidden cost that doesn't appear on your receipt, the cost you pay with your life.
Here is a question that defies the laws of physics. Why is a double cheeseburger cheaper than a head of broccoli? To grow a cow, you need land, water, feed, slaughtering, processing, refrigeration, and transportation. To grow broccoli, you need land and water. Logic dictates the burger should cost 5 times more, but in the supermarket, the rules of logic don't apply. The rules of subsidies do. The U.S. government spends billions of tax dollars every year subsidizing farmers, but they don't subsidize spinach or carrots or apples. They subsidize corn and soy. And who buys the corn and soy? The ABCD Cartel. ADM and Cargill take that cheap, subsidized corn and turn it into high-fructose corn syrup. They take the soy and turn it into soybean oil. These are the 2 cheapest sources of calories on Earth. This is why ultra-processed food is everywhere. It is not because it tastes better. It is because it is designed to be cheap and immortal. Real food rots. An apple lasts 2 weeks. A bag of Doritos lasts 2 years. For a monopoly, shelf life is more important than human life. If you are shipping food across the ocean, you need it to survive the journey. So they strip out the fiber, bleach the flour, and pump it full of preservatives. They remove the nutrition and replace it with empty calories. The result? A global health catastrophe. Since the introduction of these cheap processed ingredients in the 1970s, obesity rates have tripled, diabetes has skyrocketed, metabolic diseases are killing more people than wars. But here is the darkest part of the cycle. If you get sick from eating processed food, who profits? The healthcare industry. And guess who owns the pharmaceutical companies? The same massive investment firms, BlackRock and Vanguard, that own the food companies. It is the perfect closed-loop ecosystem. One arm of the monster feeds you the poison, sugar, seed oils, processed grains. The other arm sells you the cure, insulin, statins, Ozempic. Bayer is the perfect example. They own Monsanto, which makes the pesticide sprayed on your food, and they also own a massive pharmaceutical division that sells medicine for the diseases caused by chemical exposure. They get paid when you eat, and they get paid when you get sick. The system is not broken. It is working exactly as designed. It is designed to extract maximum value from a human being, first as a consumer, then as a patient. But just when you thought the monopoly on nature couldn't get any tighter, the tech giants decided to step in. They looked at the food system and said, "We can do better. We don't need farmers. We don't need soil. We don't even need animals." We are entering the final frontier of food control, the era where what you eat is not grown, but coded. The monopolies we have discussed so far, the ABCD Cartel, the seed giants, the supermarkets, they are the masters of the old world. They control the physical grain and the physical land. But in 2030, land is becoming a liability. Weather is unpredictable. Labor is expensive. So the billionaires of Silicon Valley and the executives of the food industry have decided to disrupt nature itself. They are building a new system where food is not grown, it is engineered. Welcome to the era of patented protein. You have probably heard about lab-grown meat or synthetic beef. It is marketed as the solution to climate change. They tell you it is cleaner, greener, and kinder to animals. But there's a hidden economic motive that is far more powerful in saving the planet. You cannot patent a cow. A cow is nature. Anyone can breed a cow.
But you can patent a proprietary cell line grown in a stainless steel bioreactor. Investors like Bill Gates and companies like Tyson and Cargill are pouring billions into this technology. They are not doing it to destroy their own meat business. They are doing it to monopolize it. If they can replace the rancher with a lab technician, they own the entire supply chain. They own the intellectual property of the meat itself. Imagine a world where you have to pay a licensing fee to eat a steak, just like you pay for software. And for the crops that are still grown in the ground, the farmer is being replaced by an algorithm. Companies like John Deere are turning tractors into spy machines. Modern tractors are now filled with sensors that collect data on every square inch of soil. Who owns that data? Not the farmer. John Deere owns it, and they sell it to Bayer and the insurance companies. We are moving toward precision agriculture. In this future, the farmer is just a spectator. The tractor drives itself, the satellite tells it where to spray, the genetically modified seed is dropped into the soil by a robot. The farmer is no longer a steward of the land, he is a renter in his own field. He is trapped in a digital ecosystem where he can't even repair his own tractor because the software is locked. This is the ultimate goal, the financialization of nature. They want to turn every calorie you consume into a tradable asset, controlled by a handful of corporations, monitored by data, and enforced by patents. So, we have reached the end of the chain. We have seen how the ABCD Cartel controls the grain. We have seen how Bayer controls the seeds. We have seen how Walmart controls the shelf. And now, we see how tech giants want to control the biology. But there is one question left unanswered. Who owns them? Who owns the shares of Pepsi and Coke and Monsanto and John Deere and even the media companies that tell you everything is fine? If you look at the top shareholders of almost every company we mentioned in this video, two names appear over and over again. They are the monopoly of monopolies. They manage more money than the GDP of China, and they pull the strings of the global economy from the shadows. To understand the puppet masters who are really funding this takeover of your food, you have to watch this video next. Who owns the world? The BlackRock and Vanguard monopoly. Click here to see the faces behind the curtain. I'll see you there.